So Amina Dib, who is the chair of the Anti-Racism Roundtable, is going to give opening remarks. But before she does that, we do want to take the opportunity to respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional territories and treaty lands of the Mississauga of the North Credit First Nation, as well as the Anishinaabe of the Williams Treaty First Nations, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis Nation. As ResCon's offices are in Vaughan, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. And now I'll introduce someone who needs no introduction, Amina Dib, who is ResCon's Manager of Government and Stakeholder Relations and the Chair of ResCon's Anti-Racism Roundtable.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks everyone for joining our second annual webinar in recognition of International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. This year's theme is Voices for Action Against Racism. Like Andrew said, I'm the Manager of Government and Stakeholder Relations at ResCon, but more importantly, I'm the Chair of ResCon's Anti-Racism Roundtable, which was launched in September of 2020 in response to acts of anti-Black racism on construction sites across the GTHA. The Roundtable brings together over 50 people from over 25 organizations in the construction industry, including developers, associations, unions, secondary and post-secondary training partners, charitable organizations, subtrades, and municipal and provincial governments. Since its inception, we've launched the CARE campaign, held events to raise awareness about racism and discrimination, created an employer policy template on anti-discrimination and anti-racism, launched our CARE webpage, and a campaign to highlight the diverse voices that make up our industry, among other things. Most recently, we've launched a short survey to better understand and benchmark where ResCon members and related stakeholders are at with their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. With this information from the survey, ResCon and the Roundtable will be able to better understand how we can tailor our efforts to better suit the needs of our members and the broader industry. Ahid will put the survey in the chat. Please take it and share it within your construction networks. As I mentioned before, we began our efforts to combat racism and discrimination in 2020. We should have been working on it as an industry decades earlier and thus are playing catch up in a way. A lot of our efforts have been centered around awareness building and education. However, in 2022, we're slowly trying to move towards action-oriented efforts. How can we equip ourselves, our membership industry, to make small but tangible changes? Today, you'll hear from people who will help with this do part, from Skills Ontario's DEI programs and how industry can get involved, to the toolbox and safety talks that builders can hold on site as early as tomorrow. But first, we'll hear from our first keynote speaker, Michael Pinball Clements. Michael was born and raised in Florida and began his career in the CFL with the Toronto Argonauts, is a three-time Grey Cup champion and pro football record for most career combined. Following his playing career, Pinball became the head coach of the Argos and coached for up to 12 seasons, making him the first Black head coach to reach and win a Grey Cup championship. Known for a personality that is electric as his style of play on the field, Michael redefines the meaning of community involvement and has been recognized by many organizations for his tireless work with charities, schools, and other community groups. After retiring from the football field, Michael founded the Pinball Clements Foundation, providing marginalized youth with educational resources and options to integrate into the mainstream of society. Welcome, Pinball. He's unfortunately not here live with us today, but I'll share a message that he wanted to convey with us.
Hi, I'm Mike Pinball Clemens, and I'm pleased to join you today. I'm also awfully disappointed, though, that I can't be there in person because on a topic like this, I would have loved to have taken some questions, so we'll hopefully maybe we can do that at a different time. But to establish some flow, since I am not there with you, I'd like to start with a little poem that'll just get me going a little. It's called "The Paradox of Our Time in History," and it reads this way. It says, "The paradox paradox of our time in history is that we have taller buildings but shorter tempers, wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We spend more but have less. We buy more but enjoy it less. We're bigger houses and smaller families, more conveniences but less time, more degrees but less sense, more knowledge but less judgment, more experts but more problems. We drink too much, smoke too much, spend too recklessly, laugh too little, drive too fast, get too angry too quickly, stay up too late, get up too tired, read too sudden, watch TV too much, and pray too seldom. Indeed, we have multiplied our possessions but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. We've learned how to make a living, but not a life. We've added years to life, but not life to years. We've been all the way to the moon and back, but have trouble crossing the street to meet the new neighbor. We've conquered outer space, but not inner space. We've done larger things, but not better things. We've cleaned up the air, but polluted the soul. We split the atom, but not our prejudice. We write more, but learn less. We plan more, but accomplish less. We've learned to rush, but not to wait. We build more computers to hold more information, to produce more copies than ever before, but have less communication. These are the times of fast food and slow digestion, of tall men and short character, of steep profits and shallow relationships. These are the times of world peace, but domestic warfare, of more leisure, but less fun, of more kinds of food, but less nutrition. These are the days of quick trips, disposable diapers, storm morality, one-night stands, overweight bodies, and pills to everything from cheer to quiet to kill. It's a time when there's much in the showroom window and nothing in the stockroom. It's a time when technology can bring this by email. That's how I received it. And it's a time you can either choose to share this insight or just hit delete. What I'll ask you to do today is not to hit delete, to understand that life is not about stuff, it's about people. That matches up with our theme today. It is anti-Black racism. And with that, I want to maybe share what is probably one of my most personal experiences with anti-Black racism. And it takes place when I'm a kid and I'm in middle school, grade 6, 7, and I'm actually walking home from school, and there's a group of guys who came by in a pickup truck. They were older guys, obviously a lot bigger, a lot stronger, and it was several of them, and they were in this big pickup truck, and they drove by and yelled the N-word out and then kind of tracked her back around like they were coming back around, and it was a difficult time, no doubt about it. When the truck turned the corner the last time, I kind of took off running, and I was able to make it to a safe place, a safe position, but that one event, there are many different things that have happened because I grew up in the South, but not just in the South. It has actually taken place right here in our own city, and no need to elaborate there. But I just want to maybe say that trying to deal with it now, trying to perform, how do I respond to this? And my response was to write a poem. We were asked to write a poem for our English class, and my poem, I remember it sounding like this. It said, "Stand up, boy, you don't sit there. You know you stand up, not sit in a chair. Hey, Blackie, I got some water. Do you want some? Oh, I forgot, they don't drink water where you come from. Downrated, segregated, discriminated. By others we're hated because of our skin, not what's within." Now, I don't remember that because I have a good memory. I remember it because it hurt. But as you know, as we have to move through these things, right? And it was a way of me relating and getting it off of my chest, if you will. And what was my solution? Where did I go from there, right? There's a saying, well done is better than well said. And so instead of worrying about what they said about me, right? I really worked hard to just be the best I could be. And in some ways that day might have helped me, right? Because I think I was always inspired from the inside out. Not only that, my mom was amazing, right? She's more responsible for my success than I am. She made the greater sacrifice. But in saying that, I I really worked hard to be the best I could possibly be, and when I graduated from high school, not only did I get the athletic accolades of being all-state in soccer and football, but I also won the Principal's Award for the top student athlete. I won a similar award for the entire county that I grew up in. Dunedin, Florida, where the Blue Jays train. So Dunedin, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Largo. So I won the not just an athletic award, but a student athlete award, both for my school and for the county that I lived in. And in saying that, so some of us, still, kind of ask that question, right? Well, is racism real? Does it exist? And the short answer is yes. And the best way I've heard it put historically is that there are 3 L's historically. And so in Canada here, right, we are living on what were indigenous lands. So their lands were taken away. And then African labor, mainly African, there were others, but mainly African labor, right, actually built the economy in North America. And then that was followed by laws that prohibited both indigenous and Black families to thrive, to have property, to take ownership, other laws that were more incriminating and all designed for these 2 groups not to prosper. And so it's important that we acknowledge that, but we also, can, kind of relieve the burden, because none of us living today started racism, right? There's no one that's living today that started racism. And so consistent with that, I used to think that while no one started it, right? And so we can release that burden off of ourselves, we do have a responsibility to deal with it. Now I've kind of grown to say, you know what? I can't place that responsibility on anyone else. Yes, as a community, as a province, as a country, as a world, right? Do we have a responsibility? I would suggest that yes, but every individual has his own opportunity to choose what he wants or she wants to do. And so consistent with that, I no longer believe that we have a responsibility, but I do believe that we have an opportunity, right? And as I look at it from that vantage point, I would still say, while we've progressed, while things have gotten better, right? I don't want you to cop out, right? Because there's more to come. But when I say cop out, I also mean too many times we've put this on policing and different things, and police have kind of been put out there in the front and kind of say, oh, look at what this happened, and you can see some of the things on video that took place, but on video every day in systems in our country and around the world, it speaks to racism of different kinds in different communities, and today we're talking about anti-Black racism, and it exists in all of our institutions, whether there be healthcare, housing, education, or employment, right? It is not, we kind of put this on the shoulders of someone else so we can say, not me. But there are additional microaggressions and different things that happen on a daily basis. And some of those things are not intentional, are not real, that they didn't intend, but people, deal with this and carry this burden around so much that sometimes we actually equate what are not microaggressions to microaggressions because of the things that have transpired. And so with that, I just want to say thank you for listening today, and bring us back to our theme. Our theme last year was awareness. The theme this year is action. There's a Chinese proverb that says, vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. Our job is to turn vision into action. So we have this vision of things getting better, right? And so I want to be very specific here, right? Because philanthropy is not equality. There's a difference between the two. Opportunity, right, itself does not equate to equality. That is the goal. The goal is equality. And so when we speak to equality, what we speak to is employment, leadership, and ultimately ownership, right? It means that not only are Black people and other underserved communities, not only are they having an opportunity, but they're actually becoming employed, actually given opportunities to be leaders at the front of the table, actually given opportunities even to own and own companies and play those roles. And so in equality, we see each other living next door to each other, right? And having a seat at the table, right? That's what equality is, and that's what we yearn for. I thank you for so much for your time today, and I want to thank groups like Bolt and Hammerheads and partners like Rescon, who actually give young people the opportunity, not just to have the opportunity, right? I should say, but they also employ young people, right? Give them the ability to be at the table, right? So that they can become fellow employees, peers, sit across from each other with love and respect. That is equality. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Pinball, for your remarks. They were extremely heartfelt. Listening to real life experiences is always really useful for us that want to, make change and make the world more inclusive. It helps us to really understand where everybody else is coming from. Other than that, the mentorship, education, and the youth development supports that your foundation provides have had a long life impact on the youth that you guys help. We would have loved to have you here with us, but we're so very pleased that we also have you participate. Next on the agenda is the presentation from Skills Ontario. Presenting will be Brittany Raymond and Ade. Brittany Raymond, who is the Métis from Sudbury, Ontario, is the First Nations Métis and Inuit Program Manager for Skills Ontario. Brittany has been with Skills Ontario for 4 years, but prior to that was a CWB licensed welder. She knows firsthand that a career in the skilled trades is viable and rewarding, and she is very passionate about sharing her knowledge across Ontario, especially with Indigenous youth. Ade, who started working in Skills Ontario as the Diversity and Engagement Officer, her role includes ensuring that all youth, especially underrepresented youth, are aware of the opportunities in skilled trades and technologies. Ade's goal is to motivate them to pursue viable careers in the skilled trades and tech professions, and she does so through outreach, events, and workshops. We're thrilled to have the both of you guys here, and we're looking forward to hear more about your DEI programs and efforts. I'll turn it back to you guys.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see everybody on the call. As introduced, my name is Brittany, and I'm the First Nation Métis and Inuit Program Manager for Skills Ontario. I am Métis from Sudbury, so this is definitely my home territory, you could say. So Skills Ontario, if you're not familiar with us, is a not-for-profit that's been around for over 30 years. We hope to inspire youth to get into the skilled trades and technologies. We don't just serve Indigenous and Black youth, we do any kind of youth that would be interested in these careers. I'll be talking about our FNMI programs, and then we'll have Ade talk about the DE&I programs. So to begin, here we go. What is a skilled trade? You're probably pretty familiar with what it is, but we like to say it's a career that requires hands-on work and specialty knowledge. I think a lot of people come into the skilled trades, or they think skilled trades, and they have myths and misconceptions about what these careers look like. But they are hands-on jobs, they're physically active jobs, not necessarily demanding. And there is a lot of specialty knowledge that goes in with it, of course, with your math and communication and languages and not everything as well. So Skills Ontario has a bunch of programs, like I said. This is kind of our quick calendar of what is available and when. So we do in-school presentations throughout the school year to all of the youth from K to 12 and underemployed and unemployed adults as well. We have young women's initiatives that go on throughout the year, again, to hopefully get young women into the skilled trades. My FNMI department, we have diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a bunch of challenges as well to get youth with hands-on experience. So we have our qualifying and provincial competitions and career exploration showcase. This is our like our big contest where you can come down and compete in a skilled trade, win medals, job offers, bursaries, scholarships, anything like that. We have our junk drawer races that are kind of in-school challenges so that they're more accessible, you know, in your classroom. We have summer camps, virtual challenges, and workshops throughout the year. We have a Trades and Tech Talk podcast, which is pretty cool. Some of my coworkers run that one, business summits, and then we have discovery days and outreach events as well. So the reason that we hope to get Indigenous youth into the skilled trades is summed up really nicely in the RBC Powering Up, Preparing Canada for Skilled Trades in a Post-Pandemic Economy. So this quote, I like to borrow it. So it says, Indigenous Canadians make up a greater proportion of apprentices than their share of the population. And as the fastest growing cohort of Canadian youth, their numbers are expanding 4 times faster than non-Indigenous populations. So they have the potential to be an even greater presence in the skilled trades workforce of the future. So the whole reason our programs exist is to kind of build on this. So our department has in-school presentations. They target, like I said, K to 12 and unemployed and underemployed adults as well. We go into mostly classrooms, but we can go into communities as well and talk about what is a skilled trade, you know, what do the careers look like? We go over some of the myths and misconceptions. Sometimes I get asked, how do we tell a kindergarten kid what is a skilled trade? And I use this slide to kind of show our example. So we talk more like community helpers and talk about the community and kind of how you could see people out in the world actually helping your community in a skilled trade or tech career. We also offer skilled trades and technologies days. These are sponsored opportunities where youth can come and get together and try hands-on some of the tools or activities that might be included in the skilled trades and technologies careers. So we offer this for K to 12, but we can also, again, tailor it for unemployed and underemployed adults. And it allows students really to kind of meet with Indigenous skilled trade workers and then try the tools, be in an environment where they can start to see themselves and get excited about their careers in this, you know, pathway. We also offer our FNMI student conference. So this is our largest event. We see about 1,200 students a year throughout Ontario. We typically like to do this in person, but we've been virtual the last couple years with this one. It's kind of more of a conference, so more panel style, where we have skilled trade and tech workers talk about their experiences. Youth get to ask questions about their experiences. And then we have companies and programs that support Indigenous learners come and speak as well. So it's, hey, I would love to do this as a job. Here's the supports that are available to me and where can I go to kind of learn more. So it's a networking opportunity in that sense. And again, hands-on opportunities when we can, because everybody loves those. So we try and do that as much as possible. We also have our information sessions. These have worked really well virtually. I hope to keep them throughout our transition, hopefully back to person, where we have Indigenous College Recruiter Days. So if you have a program that supports Indigenous youth or adults through training for a skilled trade or tech, or you have funding for them, you can come and speak at these days as well. But it's a way to, again, just know what opportunities are out there. We also invite the Indigenous Post-Secondary Institutes to come. So there are 7 Indigenous owned and operated education and training institutions across the province. So they come and they promote, again, their programs and opportunities. And then we have sector specific information days where we invite workers from the 4 sectors and tech. So construction, industrial, motive power, service, and tech to come and speak to, I'll say, youth about their program or about their jobs and careers and how they got into it, and kind of network more that way as well. We are hopefully going to be wrapping up in the next couple of weeks our Indigenous role model campaign. So representation is the biggest one, right? Seeing yourself in these careers, visualizing yourself in these careers, meeting with people from your community that have been in these careers. So our role model campaign is a series of 9 videos and posters that are highlighting Indigenous skilled trade and tech workers. Role models were selected by a panel of Indigenous people, so peer selecting peers, which is really great. And the role models were encouraged to talk about how their culture has helped them in their careers. So like an example, we had a lot of construction role models that said that they love working outside and they were taught to respect outside, and it kind of works really well with their belief system and that. So it's really cool to see the diversity that are in the workplaces as well. This is one of our role models, Kayla. She's a engineering technologist for Enbridge. So she talks about her path in that. And this is one of the posters. I don't have anything else to show you, unfortunately, because like I said, we haven't finished it up. But hopefully if you keep in touch with Skills Ontario, you'll see these shared very shortly. And then we have sponsors throughout all sectors and partners throughout all sectors that support us. These are our major ones, but we have smaller opportunities as well for smaller businesses that want to be included and partner with us. If you have any questions about FNMI programs, or you do want to work with Skills Ontario, my information is there on the screen. I will pass it off to Ade to talk about the DE&I options, but if you do have any questions about the FNMI program, please let me know. Thank you, everyone.
I think you're muted, Ade.
So sorry about that. Hello, everyone. Once again, I am Adesua and I am the Diversity and Engagement Officer at Skills Ontario. As we know, Skills Ontario is a non-for-profit organization that promotes skilled trade and technology as viable and a valuable career to young adults. In my role, I create awareness about skills trade and technology, and through series of events and workshops to underrepresented youth. Our mission at Skills Ontario is to stimulate world-class technology and employable skills among Ontario youth. We also have a mandate to promote careers in skills trade and technology as viable and first choice for young adults in Ontario. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are top priorities at Skills Ontario, and we are reaching out to various communities across Ontario to deliver equal opportunities and contribute to a balanced workforce. Skills Ontario DE&I program engages the underrepresented youth who identify as Black, Indigenous, person of color, or exceptionalities, and also newcomers. We assist them to navigate a pathway to a successful career. We create different events and workshops tailored to the need of various communities. Youth need to overcome critical barriers to be successful: lack of experience, lack of relevant skills, and limited access to professional networks are just a few of the issues in Canadian communities today. To combat this, Skills Ontario has put together the following programs. We have the Moja series. This is a series of inspirational events that is tailored to Black youth and their family. It creates awareness about skills trade and technology and how they can overcome obstacles and barriers to becoming successful in their desired professions in skills trade and tech. The last event was organized in February, and we had a large turnout of about 9,000 attendees. The Inclusivity series is next. This series encourages skills, trade, and technology to Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The next one will take place on the 29th of this month. So far, we have 500 youth registered to attend. We will feature a Black female plumber, and she will tell her story to motivate the youth and increase their interest about skills, trade, and technology. The Rise series. This series of events cater to newcomers. There are various sessions, and all of them highlight steps applicable to newcomers who are considering going into skills trade and technology. We have workshops that highlight topics like how to take an interview, how to become an apprentice, how to become an entrepreneur, and many more. It's very robust, and it takes place all Wednesdays this April from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Persons with Exceptionality Conference. This conference is for students in grades 7 to 12. It enlightens students and their caregivers on how to get resources suitable to them to achieve success in the skills, trade, and technology. So this is our handle. Oh, wow. Sorry. So this is our handle. Skills Ontario is always looking for organizations to partner with throughout our diversity, equity, and inclusion program. All our programs are tailored towards the particular audience we hope to reach. Representation and inclusion are top priorities at Skills Ontario. Ways in which we can work with all of you are during our events for various communities. There are opportunities for you to provide remarks at these events. You can propose an activity you would like to see, and we can organize and facilitate this in such a way to create awareness. You could nominate a speaker who identifies as underrepresented talent to speak at our events and tell their stories to motivate and inspire all youth all across Ontario. Thank you so much for your time. My email will be in the chat box. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks, Ade and Brittany, for that informative presentation and telling us how employers can get involved in some of the programs, the DEI programs that Skills Ontario has. Our next session is a panel on Toolbox and safety talks specific to anti-racism and anti-discrimination. I'll be moderating the panel and we'll be joined by Michelle Roberts of IHSA, Daniel DeSantos of Tridel, and Eugene Felice of Great Gulf. Michelle Roberts is the Director of Stakeholder and Client Engagement with the Infrastructure Health and Safety Association, also known as IHSA. She is a passionate leader involved in occupational health and safety for over 20 years with experience managing operations, fleets, driver and worker training and compliance, and now in her current role as stakeholder engagement. Michelle is committed to influencing improvements in prevention and education with the goal of ensuring safer and healthier workplaces for Ontarians in construction, transportation, and electrical utility sectors. Eugene Felice is the vice president of low-rise construction at Great Gulf. Eugene manages and oversees the construction of 500 to 1,000 residential homes annually, mid-rise residential projects through the Greater Toronto Area, and a staff of 125. He is responsible for the construction division's performance. With more than 30 years of experience, 20 of those at Great Gulf, Eugene has contributed his industry expertise to many boards. He served as OHBA representative at the IHSA Provincial Labor Management Committee, IHSA Low-Rise Residential Sector Health Labor Management Committee, and ResCon's Training and Education Committee member. Daniel is the manager of health and safety at Delterra. He leads the strategic planning, development, implementation, and management of health and safety across all on-site Delterra projects and corporate offices, including the delivery of the Corporate Occupational Health and Safety Program and the Emergency Management Policy Framework. Recently, Daniel supported the implementation of Tridel's Built to Respect campaign, increasing awareness of and education surrounding racism in construction and supporting anti-racism. Daniel is a lead on Delterra's COVID-19 response on Delterra construction projects to proactively ensure the health and safety of all workers. Daniel is an active member of the Health and Safety Committee at ResCon and is a part of a committee of industry professionals working to improve crane safety in Ontario. So I'll turn it over to Michelle to talk us through how we would build a safety talk and an overview on what exactly a safety talk is and what it would look like on anti-discrimination and anti-racism.
Thank you very much, Amina. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay and see my screen.
Yep.
Get a thumbs up, thank you. And thank you to Ahed and Andrew. And I just realized as I was saying all the names, it's the A team from ResCon, isn't it? So thanks for the opportunity in inviting IHSA to discuss this, this topic. In particular, we're gonna do a high level on safety talks and how to use a safety talk in particular to address racial discrimination in the workplace. So thank you for including IHSA in this very important event. So briefly, I'm just going to high level what is a safety talk and why do we want to give a safety talk. And really, you know, a safety talk is a great way to have a conversation, can be designed 5 minutes or less to deal with major issues or raise awareness and draw attention to a topic. And when we go through this today is I want to reassure everyone that IHSA as a trusted resource has a variety of safety talks that are available for you. But if you are considering creating a safety talk in your own workplace, which supports the theme of the event today with regards to voices and actions against racism and discrimination, is that a safety talk is a way not only to share voice, but to take action. So we do have supplementary information on the importance of what is involved in a safety talk, but let's get to why we think it's important for you to develop one and or deliver one. So we know that working in the trades comes a lot of hazards, and we've understood for a long time, you know, the ability to control physical hazards, and safety talks are a great way to help with the communication and talk about important issues on the job site. However, we also know that having conversations about difficult topics, such as mental health, such as racism or discrimination, can also be a challenge. So some of the tips I'm going to share with you today as we get through the presentation also talk about how to be effective in delivering a safety talk. But in general, let's touch on some of the key points of why we would like to give a safety talk and what some of those benefits are. As I mentioned, it's really important for us to recognize and control hazards, and a safety talk is a great way to condense information and recap. It helps to support many times a legal duty, because we as workplace parties have a legal duty to create awareness and advise workers of dangers or potential danger. So safety talk is a way to facilitate that. It's not a substitute for full health and safety training, but it is a good complement. And a safety talk is a great way to demonstrate workplace commitment in preventing harm and creating a culture of improvement and engagement. And certainly it's a great way to deter complacency. So fight that complacency where we all get stuck in a routine or get into a rut. And also the ability to promote safe work practices. So it's a great way to recap what we are hoping employees will do. Importantly, it's also a conversation and a two-way conversation, hopefully from those who's delivering the message and those that are receiving it. So you want to encourage employee engagement. It helps us to stay current when we know a lot of things are changing, hot topics, but also hazards change in the workplace, working conditions change. So a safety talk is a great way to keep information current, remind individuals, and or if we are introducing a new policy or procedure or a directive, then a safety talk is a great way to communicate that. Safety talks also help us to solidify and remind everyone on maybe lessons that they learned in a formal training environment. So oftentimes you can design your safety talk to pull out a key element from a training course that maybe you took 6 months ago and use it as a refresher. But importantly, the idea behind a safety talk is to have that two-way conversation and be able to get and pull out employees' suggestions and concerns and look at that ability to apply improvements in the workplace. So a safety talk is a great way to deliver, as I said, a bite-sized chunk of information. And if it's given at the right time on the right topic, it can make a real difference in overall health and safety performance on the work site. So we also want to talk about, well, what makes the safety talk work, right? So some key things if you're looking to design a safety talk is you want to make sure that the information that you're discussing is certainly relevant to the audience. So you want something to be suited to your workplace, your work conditions, and the workers. You want to choose the location and where you deliver your safety talk, in particular, where it's most appropriate. If you're on the job site demonstrating something, or if it's a sensitive topic, making sure the environment supports that conversation. Simple, clear, and concise messages are the best way to formulate the development of a safety talk, trying to keep that information so that it's easy to understand and easy to digest. And that includes using common language, language that the listener or the audience would understand, that's used, that's applicable and relatable. And one key point of a safety talk, if you're developing one at your workplace, is to try to use some familiar examples so that it resonates with your workers. And you certainly want to ask and involve your workers, ask questions, get them to share experiences and or comment on solutions or controls that have been recommended. And I will make a note here that if your workplace does have COVID procedures and protocols in place with regards to physical distancing or masking while delivering a safety talk, to make sure that you upheld your company's requirements. And another brief summary here on what makes a safety talk work is you want to be able to make sure that it pinpoints a specific hazard or occurrence, so that you can definitely address the most important piece, which is the controls to put in place. If you're demonstrating a practice, use a real example or a real tool. As I mentioned before, get feedback, demonstrate where possible so that it reinforces the learning. Even ask the workers to demonstrate what they understood or what's to be done. And certainly to keep records. The record piece helps demonstrate your due diligence in the workplace, that you're reinforcing key messages through safety talks. And IHSA does have a sample report that you can download to help keep track of your records. So that's the high level in general of like why a safety talk is a great communication tool, very common, delivered on many job sites, and the frequency, can vary from site to site. But the more that you deliver a safety talk, the more comfortable you're going to get. And as I mentioned, in general, IHSA has over 150 developed safety talks based on different hazards in the work site that are free to download and access. So I'll put some links in after I'm done here on how you can get some of these safety talks. But what we want to make sure we're doing today in support of ending racism in the workplace is to share with you the safety talk that IHSA has developed to help tackle the issue of racism. And this is one of those actions that you can take and put your voice to action to make a change and improvement in your workplace. And so what we're asking all those who are attending today is we're challenging with you with a call of action to be able to deliver a safety talk. Schedule some time in your workplace to hold a conversation to address racism and discrimination. But let me reassure you that we've already got one ready for you. So as Amina said at the beginning, we're hoping to give you a practical tool that you can walk away with today and take action right away. So the safety talk we have is titled Racial Discrimination in the Workplace. As I said, it's ready-made, it's free to download, so there's no barrier for you to access it. It is designed to be delivered in 5 minutes or less. And importantly, it does reinforce practical controls and suggest best practices when it comes to behaviors. And so some of the examples that are on the screenshot here, which I know is small, but you can get a copy, is reminding all the workplace parties of the roles that we have as individuals, whether we're an employer or a worker, in preventing racism in the workplace. And, it also helps to reinforce some of those key behaviors that we want to see back on job sites. It reinforces things like acting respectfully towards others, not engaging or tolerating workplace racism, whether it's intentional or not, taking action and challenging any racist or discriminatory policies, practices, or procedures that may exist today in your workplace, and then also speaking out against anything that is racist, whether it's a joke, slur, graffiti, or name calling. We want to encourage everyone to educate themselves on the best way to support others who may be affected by racism in your workplace, challenge poor behaviors and attitudes, and certainly try to become an ally in the workplace to support racialized groups. And that can help in relationships in the workplace. And certainly if racism is occurring, to play your part in reporting the act of racism or discrimination. And if possible, report that to your supervisor, a manager, or if you have one, an HR department in your workplace. Now, understanding, as I mentioned before, that you may be comfortable delivering a safety talk on typical physical hazards that we see on many job sites. But we also recognize that topics such as racism, discrimination, or other mental health related topics may be challenging to deliver. They touch on sensitive topics. They could be a difficult conversation. And so what IHSA has done to support the delivery of safety talks when it comes to these more sensitive items is we've developed a how-to guide. And I'm going to very briefly talk about a few of those things to help get prepared to deliver a safety talk on racism, discrimination, and or other mental health related topics. So high level, it's important that you prepare yourself before delivering one of these talks, because as I mentioned, we know it can be difficult conversations. So not everyone is necessarily comfortable in discussing racism, especially when it comes to discussing it at work. So we want to help you feel comfortable. We've put together, with the assistance of IHSA's Kathy Martin, who is our coordinator, mental health and wellness specialist, has put together an on-demand webinar with these practical tips to help prepare you to deal with mental health, sensitive topics, safety talks related, including racism and discrimination. So please, we encourage you to check out this free on-demand webinar. I'll put a link in the chat to help build yourself in getting prepared. But it's getting comfortable with the conversation. It's understanding that there's going to be lots of emotions that potentially come out when we have these sensitive discussions. And how do you recognize your own emotional response and those of others, and being able to respond respectfully. It's important that we prepare your crew or those that you're delivering the safety talk to. And when we get to safety talks such as preventing racism or discrimination, it's important that you give your crew a heads up that, hey, we're going to talk about this, so that there is that advanced warning, because some people need to prepare and others may be triggered by a subject such as racism and discrimination, maybe based on their own experience. So we want to be able to be respectful and prepare others in case there is a trigger. When we say trigger or a warning of a trigger, it just allows people to process, prepare, and maybe avoid any type of reaction that may be not intended, but could be a real response based on the sensitive topic. So being prepared and your crew is important as well, so that the talk could be successful and that you're being respectful for all those that are receiving it. In addition to preparing yourself and preparing the crew, there's a couple other things we want to just touch on very briefly in the how-to when it comes to delivering a safety talk. So we know, as mentioned, that a safety talk helps break the ice, but it's also what we're proposing here on racism and discrimination is a very serious conversation, right? So it can't just be this one-time safety talk. It can't be that's the only time we're talking about preventing racism or discrimination in the workplace. You need to keep those conversations going. So it's important that there's a long-term communication plan to be able to address that. We also, in part of that conversation, is encourage participation. So when you're talking with your fellow workers, is hopefully they'll be willing to share and talk and speak up, but recognizing it could be very difficult for them to share their experience in a group setting, and perhaps they may be more comfortable doing that in a private one-on-one conversation. And we certainly want to make sure that if dealing with this, that we have the ability to offer supports. So if someone does express or even have a trigger or have an emotional response, how do we get them help so that we're not ignoring their response? And some of those supports could be in-house if you have an EFAP program. Many of you might not, so a supervisor, a crew leader, but also, perhaps they need to reach out to a family member, a friend, and or a physician. And we also want to make sure that we're listening when we're delivering a safety talk on this and not cutting off conversations. Hopefully we're getting that feedback. You want to maintain eye contact, try not to interrupt someone who may be sharing, and maybe they're getting emotional. Maybe they're, they're struggling to find their words. Give them time and be patient, and definitely make sure that you reflect on what they had shared. And then obviously, if someone has expressed something, making sure that you follow up with them to make sure that they're okay afterwards. And certainly we want to be able to lead by example. We want to treat everyone with courtesy, kindness, and respect, and making sure that when we are delivering these conversations that we're treating everyone equally. We're not centering anybody out is important. If we can, make sure that we encourage feedback, but certainly make sure that we also don't judge people for sharing their situations or expressing their own emotions. And certainly if any of these conversations happen and it goes offside, you need to be able to stand up and defend and help others to stop any type of reaction that might be negative or continue to lead to discrimination or stigma or harassment or bullying or racial discrimination. So as I said, we do have a webinar to help prepare you in delivering safety talks, and I encourage those who are going to deal with sensitive issues to check those out. Now, just to end quickly here on the safety talks that are available, that are pre-made and ready for you to deliver. If you visit IHSA's website, I'll put the link in the chat momentarily, you'll land on our safety talk webpage. This is where you can get over 150 topics that are free to download, and you can deliver them right away. As I said, racial discrimination in the workplace is the one that I just displayed, but as of last week, again, Kathy Martin, our mental health specialist, helped to publish 8 additional safety talks that are related to mental health, and they are related to discrimination and racism, because that's a behavior in the workplace that we need to end, because it obviously causes damage to someone's mental health as well. So in addition to the one titled Racial Discrimination in the Workplace, I encourage you to check out the other topics on mental health. And just a reminder that as you do your part in supporting the campaign of the voices and actions against racism by taking on the challenge of delivering a safety talk, if you need any assistance, please reach out to IHSA. We're just a phone call click away, and we're here to help you.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to turn it over to Daniel and Eugene for some questions. The first one, maybe Eugene can start, and then Daniel, you add on. But what are some specific components or topics you've included in your safety talks on anti-racism and anti-discrimination?
Thanks, Amina. First, I just want to say, really difficult to follow that presentation. That presentation, Michelle, was outstanding. Great job by the IHSA and all your colleagues for putting that together. To answer your question, some of the components we look at when creating any toolbox talks are fairly simple. Number one, you want to look to define the topic. So in this case, you're looking to define diversity, equity, inclusion. And you want to include with part of that definition, something on the lines of why is it important to us? Like, why are we having this conversation? And in order to do that effectively, you have to know your audience. And I'm a strong believer that you need to know the individuals intimately. You need to know them by name. You need to have had a relationship with them for years. So I think with any toolbox talk, equally as important as the content of the toolbox talk is the presenter who delivers the talk. There must be mutual respect between the two groups.
Daniel?
As Eugene mentioned, Michelle and everybody else who did the part before us definitely did an amazing job in helping us kind of like understand a bit better how we can discuss these things. When it comes to the components, what we try to do is break the topics a little bit better. Sometimes we have a specific topic. In this case, if it is bullying or anti-racism, we try to focus on that particular topic and discuss some particular points that we've seen, some of our resources. For instance, sometimes we get information from IHSA, or we get information from the CCHOS or website, or we even get information from our Dayforce payroll system, where we have a learning session there, and that information we use it particularly with our audience. And like Eugene said, and even Michelle mentioned before, when we're talking about this particular topic, it is not an easy topic to discuss, and of course it requires a lot of practice and searching for the information and whatnot. But sometimes an easy thing to do is just take 12, buy a little bit of like coffee and muffins or something like that. Make people feel comfortable, and maybe discuss beforehand that will be the next safety talk for the week after or whatnot. And that would definitely help the audience to feel more comfortable in sharing their experiences or discussing some of the things that they see that we could be applying, implementing in our construction sites.
And then just building up on that, about how, like you're bringing coffee, whatever, to make people more comfortable. Who's delivering the safety talk, and how do you equip that person or train that person or people, if it's multiple people, with the resources and info to actually deliver these talks and address staff about anti-racism and anti-discrimination?
in this situation, in any situation with a toolbox talk, you want to have someone there with some sort of authority within the organization, whether it's a site supervisor, some sort of manager, or safety manager. But that's, really, when you're talking, this toolbox talk, a DEI toolbox talk it is inherently different. I think Michelle mentioned it at the beginning of her presentation. It's very much unlike a toolbox talk on, let's say, a fall arrest system, where in that situation, you might want to have somebody of a little more authority, maybe a safety manager, maybe a site superintendent. Again, in this situation, I think it's more important not to focus so much on the individual having authority, but the individual being able to draw out participation amongst the group. It's very important for the group to be engaged in this topic and share some of their experiences. And sometimes that's not going to happen with a person of authority. So it's very important to take the time, understand the audience, understand whom it is that the talk is being given to, and then strategically select the individual who's going to do the top, who's going to present the topic, and make sure that they have bought in. More importantly,
Yeah.
In our case, what we usually do, we focus the delivery of the safety talks from our safety team. So our safety team will usually deliver them. We know exactly how our team is, how our construction team is, how our sites, what our sites are going through, maybe some recent incidents that may have happened, and then we just bring out some good points from what happened and what we learned from it. And then the message is consistent. That's the main point that we want to emphasize, is the fact that once we have our safety specialist or myself delivering the message, we know that they will be delivered in a very particular way. And like Michelle said before, we have to prepare. So sometimes what we focus is getting exactly the same crew delivering these talks through all of our sites, and then the opportunity to have that feedback, we see that they feel more comfortable as we start doing this more frequently.
Yeah, so you're mentioning like a certain time. Is there like a set like time of whatever, the month, or maybe it's around close to a day like today? Or is it like something happens on site and then you're holding a safety talk? Is there like a certain approach? Is it more proactive or reactive?
In our particular case, what we do, we strive to make sure that this delivery is done every 3 to 4 months, depending how the situation goes, or in case there's an incident in one of our projects. So then we reinforce the message once again to make sure that that is engraved, that we understand that it's not acceptable to act inappropriately. We have to respect each other. We want to be respected, so we want to make sure that we follow the same protocols, and that message is usually done that way.
Safety talks can be delivered in both ways. I think in this situation, I think it's extremely important to be proactive and to conduct the talk, get the topic out there, have people start to discuss the issues before a situation occurs. But again, with any safety talk, safety talks are also a very good tool to resolve a situation that has occurred. So in my opinion, they can be utilized either way.
And then I'll point this question at Michelle, and it kind of relates to Jillian's first question in the chat. you provided some suggested tips for how to deliver a safety talk, and you mentioned it could be difficult to discuss sensitive issues like workplace racism and discrimination. What are some of these tips that you can share, and messaging that could be used in advance of the safety talk to help set the tone, or again, provide like a trigger warning? Like what are some of those tips?
Yeah, for sure. And it is, and I think that's the important piece here. These can be difficult topics in preparing yourself. And a trigger warning, like we mentioned, is that notification in advance, right? To let people know what they might hear or see, or discussions that might take place could, cause them to recall maybe a distressing situation or a memory or experience that they had lived. And it can cause them some discomfort. So being triggered, it's important to also remember that it's not a response from someone being overly sensitive or too sensitive. It is an overwhelming psychological response to a real traumatic experience that someone may have had. So a trigger warning would be something to say in advance, we are going to be discussing this topic, and it gives people time to prepare. So something could, along the lines, you could use a trigger warning, something similar to this, that the aim of this conversation is to learn and share our experiences and thoughts with honesty. Because of this, some comments may trigger a negative reaction. If a comment or topic starts to upset you, you can excuse yourself or go seek help and talk with someone who you trust on your support team. That could be a supervisor, a union rep, HR personnel, maybe reaching out to the EFAP, as we said, a family friend or physician, or even a close colleague. And it's important that you would circle back with that individual to check in on them. So respecting that someone may excuse themselves from that discussion because of their response, and that's okay. And it'd be important that you follow up with them privately later on, in a one-on-one conversation. So that's an example of a message that potentially could be used as that disclaimer to hopefully avoid a negative trigger response if we can.
And Eugene, do you want to add anything?
No, honestly, Michelle covered it all.
So there was another, I think it was based on what you said, you might have said, Eugene, but there was another question. And it has to do with the fact that racism and discrimination doesn't affect everyone equally. And so because not everyone is affected equally, unlike, for example, other safety talks or toolbox talks on like working at heights, would there be value in delivering a talk on anti-racism and anti-discrimination separately with separate groups? Yeah.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, I think in this situation, it's very important to select individuals who are going to reach the group. I can tell you that in our experience, what started off as a very small toolbox talk, for the individual crews on site, started off very small, employees only. Before we knew it, so many people jumped on the topic that the next thing you know, it was the same toolbox talk was being used at our workers, individual worker trade committees, and then were then being being used at each project's joint health and safety committee meetings. So I think we as an industry are going to surprise ourselves with how important this topic is to individuals. Our industry is vastly diverse, and in our experience, we found that by utilizing individuals who were respected by the crews, respected by the individuals on site, on a whole different level outside of authority, that it really snowballed the effect and really assisted us to manage to get the news out to a much larger group, not only now our employees, but now our trades as well.
I mean, if you don't, I don't know if we still have time, but if you want to share our
Sure.
PDF file, the way I look at it, in like Michael Clemens mentioned before, Pimble mentioned before, the last year was awareness, this year is acting. So I think, although it may not, this conversation may not affect someone directly, I think we all have a part in this. We all can share, we all can talk about things, we all can make it anti-racism discussion proactive and direct, and having the feedback from employees. So as you can see on the screen, we have a template of one of our safety talks. We have this, if you don't mind just scrolling down a little bit more. We focus on what we want to discuss. So we do talk about the violence and harassment policy and the repercussions of not following it properly, but we give also examples. We have attachments where we can kind of simplify some of the things that people may do on a construction site or in any other type of workplace environment. And then we also help them understand what they got to do if they see something. But if we scroll down furthermore, right there where it shows employee feedback, one of the things, for instance, that we had was an employee saying that the most common area to have any incidents of violence or harassment was in the hoist area, because a lot of people accumulate in the same spot, in the hoist dock or inside the hoist. And then that conversation came from a person, that comment came from a person that was not necessarily affected by it, but decided to make part of his own goal, like our Build for Respect mandate, is to participate as well. If you see something, you say something. So then in this case, the individual mentions something about an area of concern. So we did have safety talks conducted with our hoist operators. We recommended the trades to participate in that. And we also added the sticker on the hoist showing that it is important for everyone to, this sticker is actually from IHSA, the report all accidents and incidents and injuries and something like that. So then that helps people to feel part of this whole plan. Is they feel engaged, they feel determined to continue to pass the message and minimize the risks of racism in the workplace.
So it sounds like you're receiving and welcoming active feedback regarding the safety talks. And has I guess both Eugene and Daniel, if you want to answer this question, but has there been positive feedback? Has there been negative feedback? How do you address the feedback going forward?
Honestly, I can't say that I've experienced any negative feedback, so it'd be very difficult for me to speak to negative feedback. What we've done with proactive feedback is we have gone back to the Toolbox talk and we've made small adjustments. I believe our HR department has gone to the extent of now creating a committee, a DEI committee, with the feedback that came from quite a few of the individuals on the project. So it really, as I mentioned earlier, really just the topic was just embraced by all our site people, including trades, and it just snowballed from there.
And then any last words from Michelle or Daniel before we close out the panel?
I wanted to say I encourage you to take the words of wisdom of Mr. Mike Pinball Clemens, in the sense of this is our opportunity to take action and spearhead forward from awareness into action, and hopefully IHSA can support workplaces in taking action by delivering a safety talk.
I share the same thing. we definitely have to act, and I don't want to say on behalf of Eugene, but I can say definitely that the industry as a whole is committed to participate in that and change the way things are done, and that's very good to see that's very encouraging, and hopefully we'll continue to move on and do much better in the near future.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Ahid to introduce our final speaker.
So thank you, Michelle, Daniel, and Eugene, for detailing how members can develop and deliver safety talks on anti-racism and anti-discrimination. It's necessary to make sure that everybody on site feels included and feels safe. DEI is definitely a health and safety matter, and as Daniel said, the industry is certainly seeing it as such more and more each day. It was great having the three of you participate with us. We've worked with you on many different files, and you've been a great help to ResCon. So once again, thank you. Our final speaker is Nadine Williams, who will deliver spoken words. Nadine Williams is a multi-award winning poet, author, and arts educator with a passion for social justice. She has opened for Mrs. Obama, Canada's Governor General, as well as Prime Ministers of both Jamaica and Canada. Her words include the York Regional Police Keynote Speaker Award 2014 and recently named among the 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women 2022. She continues to inspire through the power of her pen, having self-published 5 books, 3 poetry and 2 children books, and over 14 posters for Black History Month. The Fabric of Our Being is currently showing at the Art Gallery of Mississauga, which is a broader installation project to bring awareness to the UN's International Decade for People of African Descent through her art installation project. Welcome, Nadine, and I'm personally really looking forward to your words.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so much for this kind invitation to be here with you guys again in celebration of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. I'm going to start the presentation by sharing a poem called Motion. Standing water will never make its way into a stream. It's in motion that it stands a chance to make it to the ocean, creating a commotion when putting rivers in space, moving boulders where they once comfortably sat, commanding respect as it moves along a riverbed. It's not how fast it rushes downstream one must glean, but that it's in motion. Stagnation does not stand a chance, but thirsty nations do quench their thirst when the river bursts. Doing is winning. Pace yourself. Some days it's a sprint, while on others, it's a marathon. The world might not always cheer you on, so do not be afraid to be your very own cheerleader. The fact that you're in the race puts you in the space to be placed. Everyone among us wants first place, everyone. But first you must get in the race. Your thirst will do the rest and bring out your personal best. If that means placing last, it's not just for laughs. It's your warm-up, your practice run, and your name will be running on tongues for days. We'll leave the world dazed when you beat the record holder. Remember this one thing, and don't you ever forget. In the stands, you're just a mere spectator. In the race, first or last, you are spectacular. So get in the race. Run at your own pace, for doing is winning, and winning is doing. Personified motion. In order to do this work, it requires us getting out of our comfort zone. This work that I have chosen to do, it started through scribbling through my pen, and I am finding that this is my way of doing. A lot of work is being done with schools. Prior to coming on here today, I delivered a quilt art installation project to a public school here in Brampton. They worked together to create blocks for their own quilt. And this is the best, I found anyway, one of the best ways to engage in this work is to start with kids. So I have some more poetry that I'm going to be sharing with you. I wrote one quite recently that's very applicable to this sector, and I'm going to attempt this screen sharing activity. I called it High Rise. So one of the there we go. One of the schools that I presented to over Black History Month in February had asked me to present on Black futures, and I'm hoping you guys can see. Can you do the head nod? Can you see my screen? Absolutely.
Yeah.
This particular piece of poetry is called High Rise, and I am hoping that I can get it in as many spaces, especially high-rise buildings, as possible. And I'm going to be reading the Black version, but there's also the generic version. So where you see Black futures, there is the version that says our futures. But as a Black woman who is very proud to be Black, I am going to be sharing from the Black perspective. Black futures are high rises we build, looking back at high-res pics from the Blacks who built. We have stellar pics of blueprints and must hold them dear to our hearts. My dears, they are the armor against fingerprints and holding cells facilitated by our women and men in blue. Our cells, derived from the DNA of our ancestors, cry out for us to be ourselves, our own authentic selves, while exuding the Black joy that comes when we glimpse our bright Black futures. The path to $1 million listings on the bridal path and sweet penthouse suites requires a glimpse of the past every now and then. It is there where we see clearly the need to deconstruct the notion of fast lives and fast cash and reconstruct our minds, cashing in at will on our brilliant Black futures. With walls shored up, utilizing the various skills found in trades or through higher education and innovation, sure enough, no matter our pigmentation, our structures can and will rise. It does take time. Even if your preference is a low rise, I tell you, no lies. For our building to stand the test of time, take your time to meticulously build. Lend your skills to those in need. Borrow and return tools when the need arises. Each time you rise, whether from rest or a fall, be it in summer, winter, spring, my favorite season, or fall, whenever the build gets arduous, as it inevitably will, take a glimpse at the high-res pics from the Blacks who built our brilliant Black futures. High rise. I'm hoping you guys love that particular piece. Again, I read it from the Black perspective, but it can be very generic. And I believe firmly that we have to take a look at the work that's been done prior to us. The resilience. When I look back, resilience is what comes to mind. If I ever feel like I can't do, I just look back. And there are so many high-res pics for us all to take a look at in order to get into motion, to do our little part. And I'm excited every day when I get up to do my little part, to help to bring about fairness and equality and racial harmony. We've been seeing so much, but that is, let me just stop sharing that. There is another piece of poetry that, and if you guys have any questions or any comments that you'd like to engage in, I'm open for that. But as we wrap, if I can tell you anything, just take a look, take a glimpse at at those high-rise pics as we attempt to build our high rises. There are many examples for us to look at, and we have to get up. We have to do. We might not know, we might not have the full the roadmap in terms of where we're going, but once we start moving, you'd be amazed to see how many people come alongside the journey to help you to keep going, right? So each and every one of us, we can do this work. My current Black History Month poster, I want to share it with you guys. It's called Amidis. This is me. It's in celebration of a lot of the work that I do. It forms commemorative art. So I stumbled upon the fact that we're currently in another decade. So we're in the International Decade for People of African Descent, which is 2015 through to 2024, but we're also in the International Decade for Indigenous Languages. And that just started, spanning the years 2022 through to 2032. So this poem, Amidis, it's in celebration of that decade. It's around affirming identity and celebration of mother tongue. This is also an activity I work with kids in schools, and it's been so amazing to hear all the different translations. So these are posters. These are little tools that you guys can use in, at your sites and in your spaces to sort of help to facilitate these sometimes uncomfortable conversations. I know where I come from, so I'm going to read it in Patois, my mother tongue, and then I'm going to translate it. Amidis, me know where me come from, and me proud subtle. Me roots them deep, and me barks them thick. Me bows them strong, and me not brock, and me a twig. Me just love to twist and turn and chat in a me mother tongue. Me boots them firmly planted upon the ground. Amidis, all of me know my identity, and me want you to listen to me. Affirm me and nobody diss me. Embrace my language because a part of me. You see me? You hear me? You understand me? And me this. Now to translate, because I know that we're not all Patois speakers. I'd be curious to know, are there any Patois speakers? Anybody understood a little bit? Not seeing any hands. It's okay. I know where I come from and I am so very proud. My roots are deep and my barks are thick. My bows are strong and I will not break. I'm not a twig. I just love to twist and turn and speak in my mother tongue. My boots are firmly planted on the ground. This is me, Amidis, all of me. I know my identity and I want you to listen to me. Affirm me and do not disrespect me. Embrace my language because it is a part of me. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you understand me? This is me. I think this is a very relevant and applicable piece to share with you guys in this sector. You will find a lot, and I've had, I've been on construction sites, so I know of what I speak. There are a lot of people that speak different languages, that English is not their mother tongue, right? And so it's important. Sometimes there's a lot of times people make fun of people who don't speak English or don't speak like them. So these are important. I feel anyway, this is an important bit as well to add in to your amazing presentation and dialogue here today. And so with that, I'm going to, unless there are any questions, let me see, did anything pop up in here? I'm going to stop there. Any questions, any comments? And I want to thank you guys again so much.
What there was a lot of positive comments, Needy. And so as a way of thanking, I just want to flag that. I think there was at least a half dozen requests for the poems that you shared, for some of the art that you shared. And so we'll do our best to get out there. I like to think I'm getting better at public speaking, but then I hear somebody like you speak and I see how long away I still have to go. But you're an incredible speaker. You're very passionate and you're very wise in what you say. And we're blessed to have you here today.
Thank you.
I've only got a couple minutes here for closing remarks. And so what I think I need to do is mainly focus on the thank yous. Our anti-racism efforts at ResCon really started with Amina Dib. She became the first chair. And then we, shortly after that, I think hired Ahed. I can't remember when we hired Ahed because I can't really remember life before her. So, or maybe I just don't want to. But between Ahed and Amina, we're well covered at the staff level. But as we all know, ResCon staff is only as good as our members. And so we had 2 members on here today from Great Golf and from Tridel. They do incredible work. And, our theme is we're still trying to raise awareness, but we do have builders like Tridel and Great Golf that are taking action. They didn't present today, but I also do have to give a shout out to Daniels. And if any builder is saying, why didn't you name me? We'll get you in the event next year. We'll recognize your efforts, and any other ResCon builders that want to shout out, get in touch with us, and we'll give you guys some opportunities to shine with, Great Golf, with Tridel, and with Daniels. I'd like to, and I know they were thanked, I'd like to thank the other associations. So I'm very fond of both Skills Ontario as well as IHSA. I think today's event was phenomenal. And again, thank you to Amina, Ahed, the ResCon staff that worked on it, all of our members, everybody who presented. Also, I think everybody was touched by the keynote, Mike Pinball Clemens. And he said a couple things that I think need to be repeated. So we need to turn vision into action, right? We need to take awareness and we need to make individual commitments to action. I liked that he used the words "don't cop out," right? There's things that everybody can do. I need to do things, and everybody on this call needs to do things. And taking the approach of, well, I'm not doing anything to make it worse, that just doesn't cut it. It didn't cut it 2 years ago, but I think we've evolved as an industry, and Amina said it well. We're late on this issue, and we're trying to catch up, and we're doing great work, but we still need to recognize that we're late on the issue, and there's a lot that we need to do. And so this is another event. There's going to be another event next year. And we're going to continue to raise awareness, but we're also going to continue to focus on action. And so let's celebrate what we're doing. Let's be honest about what we're not doing, and let's raise awareness, and let's continue to make improvements. It is 2:31, so I'll let everybody go. But the last Mike Pinball Clemens quote that I'll give you is, "Well done is better than well said." I think there was a lot said today that was well said, and you know, let's over the next year turn that into well done. With that, I hope everybody has a great day, and thank you everyone for all of your efforts, and be well, be safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great afternoon. Thanks for including
course.
me again.
Everyone, take care.
Thank you.